J-Factor, New Jersey Firearms Owners Syndicate. Yesterday we did a piece on Patterson's laws. We did a piece on the the slaves can't carry guns on Sunday law. And so what we determined yesterday was that slaves can carry guns Monday through Saturday. They can't carry guns on Sunday. And what that proved was everyone else could carry guns 7 days a week. And so the critical phrase that we were going over yesterday by discussing the slave law was at the time of the founding. And that comes out of Heller, that phrase. And it's very important that we understand that that is now the Bruen standard, is that if states want to have a law that is compatible with the Second Amendment, that it's the duty of the state now, which this is one of the best parts of Bruen. It's the duty of the state now to prove that there is a analog, similar. It doesn't have to be an exact, but a similar law at the time of the founding. And what at the time of the founding would mean, if you go into Heller and you search the word voters, as it was understood by voters at the time of the founding, right? And so, or as it was understood by the founding generation. So, Patterson is the first Attorney General for New Jersey as a state. So he is William Livingston's Attorney General. And Patterson is a big player. We don't have, like, Go back to high school history. You guys remember the Patterson Plan. We don't have a Senate without that. We have a completely different government than the Virginia guys were proposing at the time. And then the small states knew that they're not going to be well represented. And Patterson comes up with this House and Senate plan, and then there's like a month-long negotiation, and everybody has to give a little bit, but we end up with the system that we have now. So Patterson is huge. Anyway, we are discussing at the time of the founding the New Jersey Constitution of 1776. So understand we're operating under the New Jersey Constitution of 1947, and then before that is the New Jersey Constitution of 1844, and then the first one is 1776, and so that's 2 days before the Declaration of Independence. That's July 2nd, 1776. Only two guys signed that thing, Samuel Tucker and William Patterson. William Patterson is a big power player at the time of the founding. So if you go back and you read the Constitution of 1776, and this actually carries through to the 1844, and there's portions of this that still exist in the 1947 Constitution. It's not worded the same way, but it means the same thing. There's the 21st clause, and the 21st clause reads that all the laws of this province contained in the edition lately published by Mr. Allinson shall be and remain in full force until altered by the legislature of this colony, such parts accepted as are incompatible with this charter, and shall be, according as heretofore, regarded in all respects by all civil officers and others, the good people of this province. So what that means is we throw off the yoke of the British government on July 2nd, 1776, but we've decided that we're just not going to go into a state of anarchy. So the laws that are on the books remain in full force until they're altered by the legislature. Now, that's critical to understand that. That's where the laws of Patterson's laws from 1799, 1800, that's where those come in, because Patterson redoes the laws and throws out all the English statutes and all the stuff that are no longer applicable to the state of New Jersey. And so I think there's a phrase in there. that's critical, and there's some new stuff that's been happening on the 2C58-4 permit issuing front. And one of those things is permits seem to be getting lost between the county court and the police station, right? What we're starting to see is now almost all of a sudden the Bruen Response Bills come out, and now they're starting to issue these permits, and we're seeing that the dates on them are like October, November, judges' signatures, and then guys are picking them up in late December, losing 2 months on their permits. And then I read a story today on the Monmouth County CCW page where a guy goes to pick up his permit at his chief, and the permit processor tells him he has to go buy insurance or his permit's no good. Well, that's a complete load of crap, because the insurance requirements in the Bruen Response Bill, it doesn't take effect until July. There's clearly going to be a TRO issued on this thing on January 5th. There's no way the government can find an analog for any of these laws. They're still operating under that Sicardi rule that they can use the public safety clause to override all of this stuff, and they can't. It's gone. There's something I think that is critical in that sentence, and it's, sorry, I'm 55. It's tough to see without my glasses on. Regarding in all respects by all civil officers. Okay? Critical. That means, like, if we have a 2C58-4 permit system, your police department has to issue the permit. And they have to issue it, as we see in the Shuttlesworth Rule, page 2138 of Bruen, note number 9. They have to do it in expedited fashion. And they have to do it within the strict guidelines of the 60 days, okay? And that, by the way, that 90 days, that's out. You're not gonna have 60 days from 1924 to 2022, and then all of a sudden we're gonna flip that thing to 90 days. That's ridiculous. You don't need 90 days. 60 days was from 1924. We didn't have an SBI, we didn't have an FBI, we didn't have fingerprints in 24, and there was no email in box number 13 of the application, and not everyone had a telephone. So doing the background checks was a little bit different in 1924. Today, you don't need 90 days. All you need is, does the guy have the FID card? If he does, he's got the SBI number. Run that SBI number into the computer. Guy doesn't have any arrests. Boom, he's qualified. That's the way it works. They don't know it yet, but that's the way it works. We'll do a complete other segment on that. Okay, super important. Allinson's laws. This is from April 1702 to January of 1776. I'm gonna throw that January of 1776 in there. I don't know the exact days of at the time of the founding, but it seems to me that these pre-revolutionary lead up in the late 1770s. You could go early as the 7 Years' War in like the 1760s. That whole body of Second Amendment scholarship that existed back then, when it was actually a role reversal and the government wanted us to carry arms and wanted us to show up for militia duty armed and wanted us to be fully armed at all time, aka well regulated. That is critical timing. And so yesterday we're talking about the slaves can't carry guns on Sunday. They could Monday through Saturday, because apparently Monday through Saturday they're out hunting for their owner, and that was okay. But on Sunday they're hunting for themselves, and that's not okay because they're slaves, and the government's decided that for some reason they're not allowed to hunt. And we got to go back to where these game laws come from. They all come from the king's prerogative. And the king's prerogative was the king owns all the land, and therefore he owns all the forests, and therefore he owns all the seas and rivers, and therefore he owns all the animals in the forest and all the fish in the seas and the rivers. I didn't make that up. That's actually written. I just did it for you really simple in 5 seconds instead of taking 5,000 words to explain it, but that's what it says. Okay? And so this whole, you need a hunting license, you need a fishing license, and I'm a striper fisherman. I gotta have a striper fishing license in New Jersey, and then I need bonus tags. Then I need everybody on my boat needs to have a license. And then if I cross the channel and end up in New York waters, I got to carry New York licenses with me, because if I get rolled in New York, I'm illegally fishing if I don't have the New York license, even though, the Raritan Bay is cut off by the Ambrose there, and I could be on either side of that depending on where the bunker is. The whole thing is stupid. And then, when the weather warms up, I gotta go get a tuna license, and if I want to catch swordfish, I gotta have a separate license for that. And if I want to do sharks, it's just ridiculous. And it's not any different if you're a freshwater fisherman. You guys know what's going on with the freshwater licenses. So that all comes from Old English law, king's prerogative, that the government, or the king, owns all the fish in the sea or all the animals in the forest. And so that's really important to understand. I think if you want to look into that further, St. George Tucker's notes in his American version of Blackstone, or his American rewriting of Blackstone, what he did is he rewrites Blackstone, but he puts all these American applicable notes in it, and those notes are critical to understanding the Constitution and what English law does and doesn't affect here. And it's very big in the Second Amendment. He does a piece on game laws, and his game law piece is really, really well written. And if you want to go into this further, I think you should read St. George Tucker on that. But Allinson's laws contains game laws, and so condensing 3 pages of game laws, there are people who are allowed to hunt, when they're allowed to hunt, who's not allowed to hunt where, all of these game laws to prevent hunting. What was going on in England was they were using these game laws to basically disarm their political opponents. And so whether you were Catholic or Protestant, whatever government was in charge at the time, they would use the game laws and say, well, you're not allowed to hunt in the forest, therefore you don't need a gun to hunt with, therefore you don't need any guns, right? And that's the easy way of saying what they were using the game laws for. So it's really interesting that in New Jersey, just before the Revolution, we've got 3 pages of game laws in Allinson's laws, but there's a clause in there, and I think this one's super important as we go into the Bruen Response Bill, because this is proof for us as to where we can and can't carry, okay? And so the clause reads, nothing herein contained shall be construed to extend to prevent any person carrying a gun upon the King's Highway in this colony. Think about that. The King's Highway, that's just in public, okay? That is actually, the King's Highway would be traveling, okay? So boom, right there, that clause just killed the Bruen Response Bills. You have to take your gun out of your holster, you gotta take your magazine out, you gotta stick it in a box and lock it in your car. That's stupid. First of all accidents happen there with a loaded weapon, right? The taking out, the putting away, the leaving the round in the chamber, that's where all bad stuff happens. So why you would want to do that to someone 4 or 5 times a day? Dumb, right? So I'm gonna leave my house, I'm gonna go to my car, I'm gonna take my gun out, I'm gonna put it in my box, I'm gonna drive to work, I'm gonna get to work, I'm gonna take my gun out, put the mag back in, re-rack it, stick it in my holster, go about my day at work. Then the whistle goes off at 5 o'clock. Like Fred Flintstone, I'm gonna get back in my truck, I'm gonna take my gun out, I'm gonna take my magazine out, I'm gonna put it in the case, I'm gonna rack the slide and try to catch that round. Put that in the box, lock the whole thing up, get my car, drive home. That's stupid, right? But I just showed you, it's illegal. Why? Because at the time of the founding, nothing was construed to prevent any person from carrying a gun upon the King's Highway. See? So they now have to defend that. And how are they going to come up with a law that says you can't carry in public? There is no law in New Jersey at the time of the founding that you can't carry in public. In the next couple segments, I'm going to take this, Allinson's laws, and I'm going to take this, Patterson's laws. And in there, it's the government begging citizens to carry in public. It's the government begging you to get a gun and ammunition and a knapsack and a cartouche box and cartridges and carry a sword and a tomahawk. Begging you to have a bayonet. Okay? We're going to do that in the next segment. But Allinson's laws, 1702, 1776, right there in the beginning of, at the time of the founding, you could carry a gun in public upon the King's Highway. Literally destroys the Bruen Response Bills. You need to take your gun off in public. J Factor, New Jersey Firearms Owners Syndicate, Allinson's laws. Thank you.